Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. We gotta talk. There is something seriously wrong with our youth these days. And I don't mean that in like an alarmist kind of way, but more in a worried and concerned way. So I say this with a lot of love when I say that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are two of the most homophobic generations I have ever had the displeasure of witnessing. But how is that statement possible when almost 30% of Gen Z adults in America identify as queer? Let me explain. The internet was an amazing thing to happen to us as a species, arguably. It has connected us in a way we have never been connected before. I can get a Discord DM text from my bestie in Portugal saying MILF at the top of their lungs in a matter of seconds, which is an act that would send a young Victorian child into hysteria and then abruptly die of dysentery. It's insane. It's really cool if you think about it, but as amazing as it is also somehow like the worst thing that has happened to us as a species, okay? Yes, I can use this tool to learn more about the world around me, to check my biases, to learn about new cultures and access a wealth of knowledge that was hitherto undreamt of in the days of ancient Grecian scholars. Or I can use it as a tool to confirm my already held beliefs, reassure me of my own prejudices, and block any new information that could change that. So today, I want to talk with you about how this echo chamber and the misuse of this incredible tool is happening in online queer communities, and how the younger queer generations are actively turning into homophobes before our very eyes because of it. So yeah, easy, super casual discussion, not heavy at all. This is not a heavy topic at all. Hi, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is E, as in equality. I know it's a little on the nose, but like if it works, it works. So I don't know what you want from me, okay? So this video is a little bit different from my others. If you do not know me, which you probably don't, hi, hello, I hope you're doing well. I usually talk about social or queer topics in video games such as Genshin Impact and others. So we cook on those Genshin videos and Honkai and other videos. I highly recommend watching if you haven't. So apologies to my subscribers for this video being a little bit more based in the real world than in our favorite piece of media. Regardless, I still hope you enjoy it because I think this is a very important conversation, and also, you know, we talk about these topics anyways, so it's not that different from my content. Okay, let's go. Adventurer, I have a quest for you, but heed my words, this quest is not for the faint of heart or for betas. But if you deem yourself brave enough, then you must slay the fierce dragon in the dark, decrepit, cursed, slightly smelly forest. But in order to do that, you must build a website from scratch. I know, adventurer, it's perilous, difficult, and headache-inducing, but you may choose to— Huh? What? Building websites easy. If you use Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video? Oh, wow. That's great. Huh? Oh, okay. So you're telling me that Squarespace has a built-in fluid engine, which is the next generation of website design? Oh. It has state-of-the-art drag-and-drop customization tools, extensive font library, and pre-built layouts to make building that dream website, like, super easy. Oh, okay, but like the dragon, you have to go through a series of tests to show your mirth and— Oh, what? It has blogging tools too? Okay. Like what? Like to help you schedule your posts, share stories, recipes, and videos like super easily? Yeah, it does. Okay, cool, whatever. But what if I want to create and sell a course online, like my course on how to slay dragons? I can do that on Squarespace too? And I can charge a one-time fee for my services, or I can sell subscriptions, all within Squarespace? Right, so I can reach more adventurers, so I can actually slay this dragon. Wow. Cool, I had no idea. Adventurer, thank you. Oh wait, what's that? You're not done? Oh yes! Sign up for Squarespace today using my link in the description below to save 10% off your very first purchase of a website or a domain, and make sure to use my code EISSOCIAL. Well, if that's the case and everybody can make websites like super easy, then that dragon is cooked! Thank you, adventurer. You're a real one. And thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this adventure. Okay, now back to the video, because I got a dragon to slay, if you don't mind me. Apologies for the ad. I do unfortunately have to pay my rent, eat, and live. So first off, before I have people in my comments hitting me with the actually emojis, I want to get it clear. No, I do not personally believe that Gen Z is the most homophobic generation, as the title may suggest. I fear generations past have been a lot more violent to queer people than some 16-year-old on Twitter with a lot of opinions and a Jenny profile picture. The title is a hyperbolic statement, it is. But unfortunately, YouTube's algorithm prefers statements such as those, so deepest apologies for tricking you. But that being said, I still believe Gen Z's and Gen Alpha's internet activity has made them more homophobic than not. Let me prove it to you. So we're gonna do a little exercise, little interactive moment here. I know it's gonna be fun. I'm going to read off a few terms in labels to you, and I want you to hear them and tell me how these terms make you feel. All right, are we ready? Trans mask lesbian, transsexual, aro ace pansexual, and bisexual lesbian. How we feel it? I've just shot 4 terms at you, terms that are labels some queer people identify as today. Some of you may be shaking your head going, those are contradictory. They don't make any sense. Or some are rewinding, trying to figure out what I just said. Others might be irritated because those are made up labels. Or maybe some of you guys are just sitting on the couch eating hot Cheetos, not giving a shit. Shout out to you. If you were to go online today and identify as any of these things, not only would you have conservative homophobes telling you that you're making stuff up and you're just one of those confused queers, but you will also find members of the queer community echoing the same sentiments. So we ask ourselves, are these labels inherently anti-queer? Do contradictory labels such as these invalidate other real queer identities? Is it harmful to identify as these things? So to start answering these questions, and to give us an easier way to slide into this discussion, I am going to give you 3 anecdotal events that I have either witnessed online or actively participated in. And then I'm going to give you a few seconds to ponder and then get back to me. So, moment number 1. A simple TikTok is the stage of our first event, as is where these events usually spring from, unfortunately. A TikTok from a while ago was posted of someone filming their lesbian flag on their wall with the text over it reading, "Y'all, I like a boy. Do I have to take it down?" Crying face emoji. Naturally, a calm discussion over the process of questioning one's own sexuality and the fluidity of said sexuality did not occur. A lot of comments and discourse surrounding the TikTok pointed in the direction of advising this person to take down the flag and also arguing that this person must identify as bisexual from now on because lesbians don't like men, point blank period. There is no other way around it. Event number 2. An amazing artist by the name of Pyro_Cry on Twitter is making gorgeous art of the characters from the Fear and Hunger franchise. Note, listener, if you're under 18, you're not allowed to look this game up, okay? You will be traumatized. Don't play with me. I don't play, okay? I personally love their art, but one day they posted a gorgeous artwork of Marina from Termina, the second game. So the only thing you need to know about this art and this game is that Marina is a trans woman canonically in the game. She rocks, okay? Love Marina. I love her. Curiously, however, the artist drew her in a more traditionally masculine frame, air quotes, and was thus called a transphobe for invalidating Marina's identity and, quote, de-transing her. This post got 2 million views, which is not a common occurrence on this artist's page, so as you could tell, it caused quite the conversation. Event number 3. I stream on Twitch. Hey guys, same username, social. And I try to provide a very queer-friendly, joyful place in the little community we've made. One night, we were talking about queerness, and as my viewers often do, one viewer shared a little bit about herself and her identity. She stated that she identifies as a bisexual lesbian, and that she had to go through quite the amount of ridicule while she figured this label out for herself. A person in my chat got mad at her, told her that she was invalidating real lesbians, and that her identity was harmful. Okay, so those are the 3 events that we will be discussing today, and using those as like branch off points into like deeper discussions. I'm cooking. So after saying those events, I'm gonna give you a few moments. Now's the time. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to ponder. I want you to let all these moments sink into your skin, and I want you to ask yourself, what do all of these events have in common? Again, another interaction moment. So fun. Love these. I'm gonna chill here for a second so you can pause and think. I want you to think, for real. It's a 1-word answer, so I'll give you a second. And really think. Don't jump to your first gut feeling. Okay, you got it? Awesome. So what do all of these scenarios have in common? The correct answer is intolerance. Intolerance for a queer person to live or be depicted as anything other than the image of the socially acceptable normal queer. Intolerance, ignorance, and prejudice, or even more answers if you're so inclined. Now, why? The culture online and many Gen Z and Gen Alpha liberal spaces is a pretty queer-friendly one. Be who you are for your pride. We celebrate Pride Month. We love queer representation in popular media, and we love queer people. Except when those queer people are a little too queer. We throw our hands and marry when we see RuPaul's Drag Race and all the slay mamas, yes gods, the boots, drag queens turning looks. But the moment when one of those drag queens is a trans man dressing as a woman, we stop and we pause. The moment we meet someone who casually mentions that they are a non-binary bisexual lesbian, we pause and then we get angry. That's not a valid label. We say, actually you're invalidating actual lesbians by saying that. And we yell, we moan, we bitch, and we groan. And the end result is a result we have been experiencing and witnessing for centuries, which is a queer person being demeaned and invalidated. But this time, this result is coming from our own very community. The act of label policing, or the act of enforcing a strict code of conduct or strict terminology over the correct way to be queer, is not something the present generations have invented. You know, we have had infighting in the queer community forever. LOL. Asexuals or aromantics were not accepted in the queer community because their lack of sexual or romantic attraction just didn't fit what it means to be queer. Biphobia is still super rampant in the queer communities because of the view that bisexuals can choose to be oppressed or not whenever they feel like it, or that they're just indecisive or greedy or confused. Trans people were and still are an ever contentious topic for some reason, and that's just naming a few. So seeing queer people label police other queers is not new, but it hurts a part of me when I see so many young people on the internet who, in most cases due to their age, have never visited a Pride event in person, pick up some pseudo-intellectual argument that was popping off on Twitter and then just took it as law. A lot of the internet discourse around queerness won't stand in real life queer spaces, which is something a lot of the younger generation just doesn't understand. If you told a bisexual lesbian she can't do that in real life, you're gonna get punched, you know? You're gonna get punched. So naively and with peace and love, I hope that this video will act as a way to challenge some of these rising sentiments that are unfortunately becoming normalized. Take the first event, for example. The original TikTok of the person asking if they should take down their lesbian flag since they have a crush on a boy was screenshotted and reposted on Twitter with the poster commenting ... but that isn't all that they said. This poster in their replies then joyously asked other lesbians to follow them and added on, quote, "All you bi lesbians in my replies still aren't valid by the way. Let's take one step outside, shall we?" In which another Twitter user in response said, quote, "They'll try to gaslight you into thinking it's valid, but you're right," with a picture of a woman holding a sign that says, "I hate a fake gay." The original poster valiantly said in response, "I will not be silenced." This situation also reflects what happened in my chat that fateful night, with one of my viewers identifying as a bisexual lesbian and then being ridiculed for it immediately. Afterwards, I talked to the person who was mad at the bi-lesbian and I asked why they were mad. And this person claimed that bi-lesbianism is erasure and invalidation of real lesbians and thus waters down real lesbians' legitimacy. Paraphrasing, of course. I'm paraphrasing. Now, personally, I felt sick to my stomach reading those tweets about that TikTok and about bi-lesbians. And also sick remembering what went down in the chat all those months ago and why I didn't stop it fast enough or why I didn't know what I was talking about. There's something so sickening, and in a bad way, and not in a sickening good way, about a queer person putting down another under the guise of righteousness, as if the unconventionally labeled queer is actively hurting someone by identifying the way they do. Spoiler alert for the whole video, they aren't. So when when I first heard the term bisexual lesbian, for example, I'm going to admit right here, right now, in this video, that my first response was, well, that's a little silly. But before commenting or opening my big fat mouth, I had to do research because, hey, I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little. I know pretty much nothing. And I wanted to research before I said anything hateful. I mean, where I was coming from was bisexual means someone who is attracted to two genders, right? And a lesbian is like a woman who's only attracted to other women, right? So you can't mix the two. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But then I look up the definition of bisexual, and stonewall.org says, quote, bi is an umbrella term used to describe a romantic and or sexual orientation towards more than one gender. Okay, makes perfect sense. But then we get to lesbian, and it says, refers to a woman who has a romantic and or sexual orientation towards women. Some non-binary people may also identify with this term. Curious. If you noticed, it didn't say women who only have an attraction to other women. So let's keep researching. The trevorproject.org says lesbian is a noun that describes women who are predominantly attracted to other women. Predominantly? What? But Google defines lesbian as a woman exclusively attracted to women. I'm so confused. Oh my god. I am so confused about what the hell is going on, okay? Why is this definition so different? Okay, well, calm down. Jesus. Words have meaning, and they also have history. So here's some history real fast. This is my favorite part of the video. Yeah. Okay, I'm taking these off for the history part because it's getting serious. And also because it's so hot in here, so I'm sorry. So, back in the day, when being queer, no matter how you identified, was outright villainized, lesbians and bisexual women were actually the same communities. Bisexual women were viewed as a type of lesbian, since at the time, lesbianism was mostly seen as a woman being attracted to other women, though not exclusively. We see evidence of this in the 1955 book, We Walk Alone, saying, quote, another source of lesbian is the so-called bisexual. The bisexual lesbian is indeed often love-hungry. Unlike many homosexuals who simply talk bisexuality, this lesbian lives it and dies countless times in the process, end quote. It wasn't until the 1970s when the terms lesbian and bisexual were made to be distinct from each other. Now, why is this? One of the reasons is due to the Furies, who were a collective of women who advocated for feminism in the 1970s in America, and wrote about their ideologies and viewpoints about the patriarchy, lesbianism, and feminism in their own newspaper by the same name, which was groundbreaking in their time. They proposed the lesbian feminist separatism, which was advocating for women to completely separate themselves from men, and in doing so take away the power that men often hold over women. They encouraged lesbianism as a form of complete autonomy from men, saying, quote, lesbianism is not a matter of sexual preference, but rather one of political choice, which every woman must make if she is to become woman-identified and thereby end male supremacy, end quote. They said that they did want to, but they questioned the act of bisexuality, stating that women who are bisexual are still in men's control and undermine the feminist struggle. Quote, women who practice bisexuality today are simply leading highly privileged lives that do not challenge male power and that, in fact, undermine the feminist struggle. These ideals about the distinction between the power of lesbianism and sort of like the weakness of bisexuality seem to be one of the turning points in casting bisexual women out of the lesbian community and out of the lesbian definition. There were a lot of queer rights movements happening at this time, so I can't say the Furies were directly the only cause of this separation, but their ideas definitely aided in this distinction between bisexual women and lesbians. This observation is of course American-centric, so apologies, I can only speak of the history of my own country, but it is important history to keep in mind for this discussion. It is important to realize that the term lesbian was never concrete or rigidly defined or followed. As we see, this continues today with the difference in definitions all over the internet. It wasn't until relatively recently that socially we started to view these definitions to be concrete and strict, and that any deviation from these definitions would be a literal threat on lesbianism or on bisexuality or any other definition. So I think a lot of people, me included, that didn't know this history of the terms or didn't know that the terms aren't super concrete may view lesbianism lesbianism as the Google Oxford definition. Quote, denoting or relating to women who are sexually or romantically attracted exclusively to other women. So I asked, if we are to enforce the true lesbian definition, which means casting out anyone who isn't a woman, who only loves women, so no bi lesbians at all, then I fear we will get stuck in the trenches a little bit. It gets slippery when you start questioning what is legitimate and what isn't. And the slippery slope leaves people to ask, what do you mean by woman? Does that woman definition include trans women? A lot of radical feminists would disagree. If a femme presenting a non-binary person goes by lesbian, does that mean they're invalid too? Well, they aren't a woman after all, they don't identify as that. So they shouldn't be allowed then, right? So then all the non-binary lesbians are just making shit up then, right? Well, if we let non-binary people identify as lesbians, then we would be picking and choosing which part of the Stonewall definition we agree with. What about an aromantic lesbian? How would that work? Is a bisexual lesbian as valid as an asexual one? Some say no to everything, and that all of these identities are watering down real lesbians. I don't know, maybe they also undermine the feminist struggle, who's to say? So as you can see, that slippery slope is slippery sloping, okay? As you can see, all of these questions start to occur once we start enforcing a strict definition on queer labels. And we always inevitably wind up where we started, which is questioning a queer person and repeating hateful rhetoric. If we as a queer community start to police who can identify as what and who can't, then how are we any better than homophobes who just hate all gay people? Aren't we using the same rhetoric? A common argument amongst TERFs or radical feminists like J.K. Rowling is that trans women aren't women, and trans women existing delegitimizes real women and real feminism. Sound familiar? WeAreQueerAF.com's writer Tristan Oscar Smith wrote, quote, some anti-trans campaigners protest trans women calling themselves women, and trans people assigned female at birth being allowed to call themselves anything but. They argue that the definitions of man and woman are sacrosanct and can't include trans people, that their cis womanhood is somehow invalidated by trans people existing. The majority of the LGBTQIA+ community sees this position as a marginal and bigoted one. So why is this part of their beliefs used against other queer people? End quote. So if you're picking up what I'm putting down, stating that bisexual lesbians identifying as such are actively invalidating actual lesbians leads us to reiterating TERF talking points and begs the question, what's an actual lesbian? Which would lead to even more bigoted questioning and even more hurt being done. Plus, if you are still confused as to why anyone would ever go by bi-lesbian, then I guess to clear your thinking is you could see it as this. As Stonewall.org and the Trevor Project says or insinuates, lesbian could refer to someone who is predominantly attracted to other women. So, a bi-lesbian could be someone trying to convey to you that their attraction to women outweighs their attraction to men. But 1 out of 10 times, they may still find themselves attracted to men, but way less so than with women. But honestly, more on this later. This act of reinforcing bigoted talking points is reflected in event number 2 of the gorgeous painting of Marina, a trans woman, looking too masculine and causing an uproar online over her depiction. People replied to her depiction with, please, in the future, don't detransition trans people when you draw them. Or, can you not be transphobic? WTF. This act of seeing a trans woman look too masculine in your eyes, and then immediately thinking that that invalidates her as a trans woman, if I may speak frankly, is so fucked up. That's so screwed up, isn't it? So then, does that mean trans women will only be accepted as such if they look hyper feminine? No? Okay, well then I ask you what a trans woman looks like. Give me the strict definition of it. If you are to identify as a trans woman, pray tell what you would have to look like to fully be able to own that label. All trans women who fail to reach that standard aren't trans women then? Do you see where this gets tricky? Do you see where this thought process gets us? To illustrate how harmful this way of thinking is, I want you to picture this. What if you, are a trans woman and you are still closeted out of fear for your safety, or you can't afford HRT, gender affirming care, or you've had your state take that opportunity away from you, and then you see this tweet. You literally have been stripped of the right to undergo gender affirming surgery, to live how you want to live in your own skin. So maybe because of that, for any numerous amount of reasons, you don't look like the idealized feminine you may wish you did. And that might bother you, and that might make you sad. And then you see art of a masculine-leaning trans woman, and everyone only yells that she isn't being depicted right, that she is de-transed and invalid as a trans woman. And honestly, she kind of looks like you. So how would that make you feel? It would probably make you feel more like, because so now you might be thinking that you'll never pass as a woman. You'll never be able to get that surgery you want. And even your community won't accept you, let alone governor. Again, what is happening here? After all of this hubbub and all of this discussion, and the end result is the same. A queer person being diminished and invalidated. The same discussion takes place with trans men identifying as lesbians. Some trans men do, some don't. We don't get to tell them what label is acceptable for them or not, because in some cases, trans men lived life believing that they were women, and thus lived and grew in communities surrounded by lesbians or other sapphics. What if this hypothetical trans man grew to love the lesbian label, felt at home with the lesbian community, before realizing he was trans? Are we gonna jump him and beat the out of him because he's not allowed to call himself a lesbian anymore, even though lesbianism was a huge part of his life? Who are you to say? Who am I to say? Who am I? Girl? Nobody. I pinky swear, I pinky promise that he isn't hurting anyone by saying that. No one's being hurt. Just like how trans women existing doesn't make every single cis woman in the world suddenly combust into flames. These words, these labels, are great guidelines for helping people find community and figure out the messy, confusing things that being a human entails. In my opinion, okay, we have these labels to aid us, not constrict us. I see queer terms and labels more like guidelines than actual rules.
And thirdly, the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules. Welcome aboard the
queer community,
Miss Turner.
Because these terms are as fluid as we are. They shift and evolve and change and grow and mold and bend and snap and break with time. I mean, queer used to be used as a slur. Now it's an amazing umbrella term for people in the LGBTQIA+ community that I love using. I love the word queer. Hey, what's up? Hey, yo, it's Big Queer. Our queer elders used and identified with the term transsexual before younger generations found ill with the term. Us youngsters are in no place to be telling someone much older than us, who might have helped fight for our comfort today, what they can and cannot call themselves. Sure, we may not use the word transsexual as much anymore, and that's how time goes. It doesn't mean it should be villainized and banned, because again, yes, words have meaning, but they also have history. Smith from wearequeeraf.com continues in their writing saying, quote, "Queerness is delightfully messy. Rigid definitions and strict rules about the correct ways to perform gender and sexuality are what created the closet and the shame and harassment that most of us have faced. Why should we recreate that for other people? Just because their experiences, journeys, and language preferences aren't the same as ours? Why should we deny others autonomy, identity, and the chance to self-describe in a way that makes them feel whole? Aren't we just perpetuating the same harm that homophobes have directed to the community since forever?" Another very important quote that still holds up today, in my opinion, comes from the 1973 lesbian newspaper called Lavender Woman that said, quote, "To me, a lesbian is a woman-oriented woman. Bisexuals can be lesbians. A lesbian does not have to be exclusively woman-oriented. She does not have to prove herself in bed. She does not have to hate men. She does not have to be sexually active at all times. She does not have to be a radical feminist. She does not have to like bars, like gay culture, or like being gay. When lesbians degrade other lesbians for not going to bars, not coming out, being bisexual, or not sexually active, and so on, we oppress each other. As you see, this self-oppression has been happening for so long. Heck, even my mother, hey E-mom, shout out to you, told me about how she identified as bisexual in the 80s. And the lesbians around her would tell her that she was confused. She had to be one or the other. E-mom said they looked at her like she was this silly, lost, and confused child. This has been happening for so long. From our own community. E-mom goat though, she didn't give a She didn't care what they said. She was just like, okay, cry about it. I love men and women. What are you gonna do about it? You know, we love E-mom in this house. I do not want our younger queer generations believing that oppressing each other is a good thing or is the right thing to do. Because it's not. It's just bigotry and intolerance disguised as being socially just without actually knowing our history, knowing where we come from, where we started, knowing about the elder queers who paved the way for you to be able to feel safe in putting your sexuality in your Twitter profile bio without fear of having rocks thrown at you. And you know what? Worst thing about it is it's not done. It's still going on. Queer people are still under attack to this very day, 2025. Still. And some of you, not everybody, want to sit around discussing whether or not lesbian trans men are valid, and you want to sit here and tweet bisexual lesbians do not interact. How privileged can some of you be? Also, I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again, and I don't mean to be harsh, and I know this only applies to some of the people watching right now, but we need to remember that being liberal or progressive or queer isn't enough. Like, just because you go by these labels doesn't automatically mean you're a good person. You actually have to put effort into being a good one. I think a lot forget that. I forgot that for a bit. I was like, I could do no harm. I could do no wrong. And that is such an easy open door to then being like a terrible person when you think you're invulnerable to being a bad person. I think a lot forget that or just don't realize that. I mean, it took me till like a few years ago to realize it. And then some of you guys just end up being so mean, either online or in real life. I know literally all of my subscribers are in fandom. I talk a lot about fandom and online discourse and stuff like that. So fandom culture and queer culture interact a ton. So I'm gonna bring in like a fandom kind of like metaphor. It's not enough to play Genshin Impact, for example. It's not enough to ship the gay ships and understand and love the queer coding context in the game and love the women queer ships and the female characters more than the guys or the gay guys ships. That doesn't make you a good or better person. What you like and what you interact with doesn't have a say on your morality. People could be into the most wholesome, morally right thing and be a horrible person, you know? That isn't enough, right? You can be mean as hell, indiscriminatory, even if you fit all of those labels I just said. Work has to be done to be a good person. And hating bi lesbians, for example, the opposite. Also, you know, I hate the thought process that one person existing under a label threatens another. It's an excuse. If we were to say that these labels invalidate real queer people, then I beg the question, invalidates us in the eyes of whom? Homophobes? So are we living so that they can take us seriously? Hey, newsflash. Again, not to be too harsh, but to homophobes, we're all silly. We're all sinful to them. It doesn't matter if we are a good normal gay on our best gay behavior with normal labels and like or ship normal things in Genshin Impact or any other game or TV show. We're normal. Or if we are the most gender fluid, confusing, multiple pronoun having bisexual lesbian. It doesn't matter. They're gonna hate us all equally. Us queer people, we don't and we shouldn't live to be easy to digest, to make liberals or homophobes comfortable. Being queer, it's exactly the opposite of that. It is delightfully messy. Peyton Dacey with the Daily Trojan wrote, quote, "People within the queer community should be freely able to use the language that best describes their identity, especially if those labels hold historical significance, regardless of whether they feel exclusive or uncomfortable to you. Your comfort in conversations of queer identity and experience should not be the responsibility of the queer person who is sharing their experience." Before later adding, quote, "Before you police the language a person uses to describe their own identity and lived experiences, take a step back and consider whether this language harms you or simply makes you uncomfortable. It does not matter if you're one of the good ones, one of the easy to understand queers, or if you're a gay man who isn't like the other gays, or bisexual person who, you know, isn't in everyone's face about it. It doesn't matter how you want to view it, you're one of us. And you will always be seen as such. You will always be seen as queer. No matter how many times you put down other queers to make yourself feel better, in the eyes of the hateful, you will be on equal ground with us. Hey, you know what? I don't know if you're watching the news, but you guys gotta wake up. Your queer siblings are under attack. Your queer siblings with labels that you don't understand or like are going to get kicked out of the military in the US. Your queer people are going to get fired because they're any type of queer. And that includes the normal ones too. You guys see the hateful ideology and the bigotry that is growing faster and faster, quicker and quicker, and all over the world too. And some of you are on TikTok telling a person they can't be a lesbian anymore, yelling at them to take their lesbian flag down. Wake up. Honestly, this video shouldn't exist. This video shouldn't have had to be made. And I shouldn't have had to put together research and factual accounts of our history in order for queer people to accept other queer people. It's a shame we are still at this point. It's a shame. What happened to our queer solidarity? Even if we didn't have it before, we need it now, guys. So if you yourself are a queer person or you are an ally, then I recommend and suggest using some of the sources in the description to, help educate yourself on queer history and other different weird queer people. Stonewall.org is a great place to start. Additionally, if you are a queer person in the US whose rights are being threatened right now, then please use these links that are also in the description. The Human Rights Campaign put together a list of direct online and phone support services for LGBTQIA+ youth. You're able to scroll to find a support line that works for you. If you want to find more in-person communities during these times, then go to lgbtqcenters.org and put in your zip code to find queer safe places near you. For more education and research, there is the Planned Parenthood link and also a Reddit link, of all things, with more resources put together by a kind individual that includes worldwide numbers. Also, subreddits like r/LGBT or even joining discords like ours, link is in the description, can provide community, which is something we all need. We need tolerance. We need solidarity. I hope these links can help even one person in finding help or resources during these times. I encourage everyone to stay up to date with the news, keep yourself informed and educated, and for the love of God, love each other. Okay, well, thank you so much for watching. Again, I know this video is a little different and definitely more serious than my usual content, but like I said earlier, it's not that different. I talk about queer topics all the time, so not that different. So if you did like the video, then I'd be very, very, very appreciative and thankful if you liked and subscribed. It will help me out a lot in the overall channel. Comment your thoughts, comment your experiences, comment your identities. Yes, this video is a little serious, but I want it to be a celebration too, because I love us. And to be, I guess, a little sentimental, I want to say thank you to everyone who supports me and the channel, from subscribing to commenting to liking to supporting me on the coffee to joining the Discord or the streams. It's super cool. We are our own little queer-friendly community, and I feel so lucky to have you all. So thank you for being here. Truly, thank you. That being said, we have our amazing supporters on the coffee who help support this channel every single month and who get to see videos early. Hey, it's Eve from the future and I want to give an updated thank you. So humongous thank you to Alien Eyes, Jonah, Luel, Kaya, Luandrill, Joanne, Moon, Blue X Crystal, Summers, Blue Ink Alchemist, Pauline, Shalami, Cass, Onyx Side, Atticus, Ayake, Pierre Burner, Selkable, Haley Robinson, Ray Fields, Zendella, Bus Driver, Wokapi, Blurry, Klee, Pandus Bombus, Friendly Fire, and Gray Hex. Thank you so much for the support. It means everything, and I hope you are enjoying this video early. Yo. So thank you again for being here, and by being here I mean watching this video and also just being here on this earth. If you want to hang out on stream, twitch.tv/ESSocial. We got a gay community over there too. So if I don't see you on Twitch or in the Discord or any other part of our little gay community, then I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye! People get sex and gender confused. Gender is what you wear. Sex is what I'm having with your mom tonight.